Hi there, welcome to my very first cooking video. I'm Nicole Sztabkowski, certified canine nutritionist and certified holistic pet health coach. Today we're going to be cooking my free turkey or chicken recipe that is on my Facebook page, Healthy Homemade Dog Food by Northern Hound Holistic. I have a few free recipes on there, and I also have my Canine Wellness Cookbook with 26 recipes in total if your dog doesn't do well on either of these. Today we're going to start by showing you how easy it is to make your own dog food from home with everything you buy in the grocery store for yourself. So I'm going to start by showing you some of my favorite tools and necessities in the kitchen. So first will be your kitchen scale. You'll use this for everything when it comes to weighing and measuring your ingredients, to portioning out your dog food. It's one of those necessities in the kitchen when it comes to making dog food. It seems daunting at first, but after a while you will get used to it. Another one of my favorite tools is my immersion blender. This is my regular immersion blender. I also have an industrial size because I do make a lot of dog food. I have one large dog, so I do a lot of large batch cooking. So I needed something a little stronger than this, but for now we're going to teach you on this. Another one of my favorite kitchen tools is my little mini measuring spoons. These guys work great for measuring supplements or measuring for smaller dogs. And you can find these on Amazon. They're really cheap. I can add a link if you guys like. Okay, we're going to get started. We'll see you for prep. Okay, welcome back. We are somewhat prepped. I've got a few things ready. Just to make it easier to show you guys how to do this. Now, I am doing the straight chicken on this recipe. My dogs don't have any issues with chicken. I know that some dogs do, so that's why I've given the option for turkey. And no, turkey and chicken are not the same. They are energetically different animals, and therefore dogs that can't have chicken does not necessarily mean that they cannot have turkey. So anyways, we're going to start with the chicken, and I'm doubling this recipe because for me, one recipe just isn't enough. This should feed my dogs for a few days if I double it. So we're starting with the 1,200 grams of ground chicken, and I've doubled that. So that is 2,400 grams of chicken. And I'm just going to put this here, move it around a little bit so it's at the bottom. This is the chicken that I'm using today. Seems to be a good deal at Walmart and No Frills here locally. I'm going to show you the chicken hearts. It calls for 80 grams of chicken hearts. This is what 80 grams looks like. It is not a lot. We are not ratio feeding. Ratio feeding is completely different than science-based feeding. When we're feeding science-based food, we are using the nutrition profile from the USDA or the Canadian food directory. Sorry, lost my words there. So that we're doubling the recipe, so that's 160 grams of chicken heart. And now this is the liver, doubled. We don't need a lot of liver. And liver grinds up nicely, so I don't even generally cut it up. I just measure, weigh, throw it in. Easy peasy. Next, we're going to do our veggies. Starting with the scale sometimes can be intimidating. Everybody thinks it's a pain in the butt, but really, it eliminates you from using a ton of measuring cups. So for the sweet potato, I've already washed all my vegetables, so you'll want to wash your veggies. But I am just chopping. I leave the skin on. It's got a ton of nutrition in it, so we don't want to cut that off. I'm really rough chopping. I toss it into my scale. This one I tend to actually cut a little bit smaller because it takes longer to cook than all the other veggies, so we will just chop that a bit smaller. Chop off anything that's questionable if you don't want to eat it. Dogs probably shouldn't either, although they have no problem drinking out of toilets and eating disgusting things, so I don't really know if they really care, but so we need 220 grams times 2. So I'm cutting 440 grams right now, which the sweet potato should be pretty close. This is going to be a fairly full crock pot today. A little too much. Now, a little tip for you guys, if you have extra, I mean, that's a little tiny bit. I'm probably just going to throw that in. If it's more, you can always throw it into a Ziploc bag, put it into the freezer for next time. All right, so we're going to put that in there. Broccoli, put our scale back on. We're going to zero out our scale. And broccoli, we are 180 grams times 2. So we'll just really roughly chop that, and I promise you, dog is not going to care about your culinary skills. Does not have to be perfect. And you know what? My math skills are terrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zero this out at 180. And I'm going to do 180 again. No math needed here. All right. So we're going to toss this in. And lastly is our mushrooms. So mushrooms, I am using cremini mushrooms, and I'm using white button mushrooms because that's what I had left in my fridge. Yes, mushrooms are safe for dogs. It's a big misconception that they are not. Dogs can eat all the same mushrooms that we can eat. If it's poisonous for you, it's poisonous for them. So, and they should always be cooked. Vegetables should always be cooked for dogs. They don't have proper enzymes to break it down raw. So if they are fed raw vegetables, you're not going to do any harm, but you're not going to do any good. So this we're doing 60 times 2, so 120 grams of mushrooms. That's a little bit over, but that's okay. I'm not going to waste them. Okay, and that is your veggies. Beautiful. It's a full crock pot. I probably normally would have done this in my big roasters, but I wanted to show you guys in the crock pot. So, and then we're just going to add our few supplements here. So we've got sunflower seeds. Sunflower seeds boost a lot of the nutrients, keeps us from having to use a huge amount of organ. I don't like the smell of organs, so I tend to use some things like this. These are raw, unsalted, and you want to cook them with your food. Break them down, make them nice and soft, and then blend them with your immersion blender. So we're doing 80 because we're timesing this by 2. Perfect. Few out. Little extra is not going to make a difference. I'm not super fussy when it comes to that. All right, so we've got our sunflower seeds, and then we're going to do our wheat germ, which is 3 tablespoons or 24 grams. We're timesing it by 2, so we'll just use tablespoons today. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so the last ingredient that I'm going to add is garlic. And I use garlic in nearly every one of my dog food recipes. And the reason being is it's a natural dewormer. It's an antioxidant. It has anti-cancerous properties. It is so healthy. No, it is not toxic to dogs. It is as toxic to dogs as it is to us. The study that had us all in a scare Many, many years ago, they did a study on dogs with garlic, and they fed them astronomical amounts, and they did, in fact, get sick. So now it's been deemed a toxic food, when in fact it is not. So I tend to add 1 clove of garlic per 3 pounds of food. That's kind of my go-to. And that's it. We're going to add a couple cups of water to this, and we're going to set it. And when it's about halfway through, we're going to give it a stir, and then we'll come back later after it's all cooked, and I'll show you how to blend it up. Okay, thanks. Okay, we are back. We are finishing off our chicken or turkey with salmon recipe. This one is with chicken. I did underestimate the size of the recipe because I doubled it. I had to move it into my big pot in order to show you the final step. So it took up quite a bit more room. I was hoping it would shrink a little, but it did not. So it is still a bit warm. For the sake of the video, I'm going to put all the supplements in. Normally, I would wait until things are cooled down a bit. Calcium is okay. It's not heat sensitive, so you can put that in. Zinc. Most of what we have here is okay. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to do it. So we're going to start by grinding this down a little bit before I start adding in the few supplements that we have here. And again, the reason I like to grind everything down is dogs have a little bit harder of a time digesting vegetables than we do. So if we have it blended down, there's no outer layer for the dog to break down. It just makes everything easier for a dog to digest. And that's the great thing about cooked food is if you have a dog that has digestive issues or, you know, they're getting up there in age or, you know, there's all sorts of reasons. My Charlie, he has a hard time digesting raw. So whatever the case may be, grinding your vegetables down helps them get the most out of those vegetables. So we're going to keep going. I don't know if you guys can see Charlie again. He's still waiting. My dogs are waiting for their dinner today. They know they're getting a good meal. My dogs are always getting a good meal. They love it. Okay, so for this recipe, we're going to use the Better Bones 4-leaf rover. This is probably my number 1 choice for calcium. Number 2 would be the calcium citrate. And then we've got eggshells, we've got calcium carbonate, we've got other options. But for this recipe, we are using 5 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon. This is a freeze-dried bone meal, which preserves the most amount of nutrients. It is the next best thing to raw bone. Raw bone is amazing for your dog's teeth, for their microbiome. It has all sorts of different nutrients in it. It's got vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, digestive enzymes. It just has a whole bunch of things in there. And it is so healthy for them. When we're cooking, we don't use cooked bone in our food, so we need to do the next best thing. These are New Zealand freeze-dried beef bones. All right, we're going to add our kelp next, which for this recipe is 2 teaspoons. We're using an organic kelp powder for this recipe. Sometimes I use this, sometimes I use the pills. Just depends. I like to switch everything up. I like to always feed variety. That way it's always something different. This recipe calls for 60 milligrams of zinc. I'm using a zinc powder for this recipe because 60 milligrams is a lot. I've used my mortar and pestle and broken that down. Again, I prefer whole foods over using supplements like this, but once in a while they are needed. If we can't feed seafood or we have a reason, oh, there's another one coming for food. Soon, Molly. I know you're hungry. All right, so we're going to add that in. And then lastly, we are adding our can of wild pink salmon. That's just boosting a few things like vitamin D, vitamin A. This one probably balances the omega-3 to 6. I have different reasons for different ingredients. I'm going to keep the juice in this one. I'm just going to throw that all in there. Beautiful. Dogs are going to love this. I can tell already. They're very hungry. Okay, and I believe that's it. Yep, we've added everything else in. We're going to re-blend. We're going to re-stir. And after we've done that, we're going to let it cool down. We're going to package it up however you need to package this up. For me, I do 6 pounds at a time. That feeds my dogs for 3 days in total. Whatever you need to do to feed your dogs, how you want to package it, let me know. I'd love to hear how you store your food. I know some people that put it into muffin cups and freeze it that way and then dump them into large containers, or however you can can it, put it into canning jars and into the freezer. For me, I do big batches, so it goes into big containers, but whatever you need to do. All right, and there you have it. Ready to go. Beautiful, homemade, balanced, nutrient-dense, amazing dog food for your dog. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.